Most people know their credit card has an interest rate, but almost nobody understands how it actually works. And that gap between knowing and understanding, it's costing people thousands of dollars. Today, we're going to make APR finally make sense.
Yeah, and honestly, the urgency around this topic, I mean, it really cannot be overstated. We've spent the whole week digging into consumer finance data and banking reports, and the numbers for early 2026 are just staggering.
Right.
Like the average credit card APR right now is sitting at 21% for all accounts. And if you go apply for a new card today, that average jumps to 23.75%, which is, historically high.
Which is exactly why we're doing this discussion on Alpha English Podcast. We want to translate all that dense, confusing banking logic into, well, actionable English. Consider us your two friends who are finally going to make this incredibly expensive machine click for you.
Exactly. We're on a rescue mission here.
And we really need to start by dismantling the single biggest misconception about APR. I mean, the confusion starts with literally the very first letter of the acronym, which is annual.
Oh, absolutely. Annual percentage rate is probably the most misleading term in all of consumer finance. Because, when you hear the word annual, your brain automatically anchors to the idea of a yearly subscription.
Right, like a gym membership or a streaming service. You pay it once, and you don't even think about it again for 12 months.
Yep. So because of that phrasing, you might see a 24% APR and subconsciously assume, oh, if I carry a balance, they'll just calculate a 24% charge at the end of the year.
Which is completely wrong. APR is not a yearly event at all. It's actually a system where the credit card company takes a microfraction of your money every single day. And then tomorrow, they take a bite out of yesterday's bite.
Yeah, daily compounding.
Right.
Daily compounding is the engine behind why revolving debt grows so aggressively. They don't advertise this because it completely changes how you view borrowing. What they actually use is called a daily periodic rate.
So to find that, you have to bypass the annual number entirely, right?
Yeah.
And just divide your APR by 365 days.
Yep, exactly.
So if you have a standard 24% APR card, dividing 24 by 365 gives you a daily periodic rate of 0.0657%.
Which sounds totally microscopic.
It looks harmless on paper.
Intentionally so. But they apply that 0.0657% to your average daily balance every single day of your billing cycle. That gets added to your principal. So the very next day, you're charged interest on the original amount plus yesterday's interest. It's a quiet daily drip that just goes up and up every 24 hours.
Let me put that in real numbers because percentages are easy for the brain to brush off, but dollars are what actually leave your checking account.
Absolutely. Show them the math.
Let's look at a $5,000 balance. Imagine you had an unexpected medical bill or maybe a major car repair, and you had to put it on a card with that 21% national average APR.
Okay, so at 21%, your daily periodic rate is roughly 0.0575%.
Right, and running that compounding formula over a normal 30-day month means you get hit with about $86 in pure interest. Yeah, that is $86 just vanishing before you've reduced your actual debt by a single penny. And here's the real trap built into the system. The bank will send you a statement saying your minimum payment due is only $25 or maybe 2% of the balance.
Whichever is greater, usually.
Right. And if you pay the typical minimum on that $5,000, it barely even covers the interest generated that month.
The math on minimum payments is devastating by design. It's strictly calibrated to keep you in debt for as long as legally permissible.
It really is. Like, if you only make the minimum payments on that $5,000 balance, it takes 23 years to reach zero.
23 years? That's insane.
Right. You could literally bring a child home from the hospital, raise them, teach them to drive, watch them graduate college, and you would still be paying off that one single car repair.
And over those 23 years, you aren't just paying back the $5,000. You're paying $7,700 in pure interest.
It just eclipses the original balance entirely.
It does. And we should probably scale this down because a lot of people assume this only applies to massive, catastrophic debt.
Good point.
So we looked at just a $1,000 balance on a 24% APR card. The monthly interest charge there is roughly $20.
Okay.
If you pay only the minimums on that $1,000, it keeps you in debt for 10 years, and it costs $1,300 in interest. So you ultimately pay $2,300 for just $1,000 worth of goods.
We can scale it down even further to the absolute micro level just to see how this daily drip works on everyday behavior. Take a simple $20 lunch.
Oh, this is a great example.
You swipe your card for a $20 lunch at 24% APR, and you just let it sit there as part of your balance for a year. That lunch now costs you $24.80.
Yep.
Carried for 3 years on a minimum payment schedule. That exact same lunch costs roughly $40.
And the whole system relies on you ignoring these daily mechanics. But there is a massive defense mechanism built into consumer protection laws, right? Specifically, the Card Act.
Right, the grace period.
Yes. It is the single most important tool a credit card user has. By law, the vast majority of cards have to offer a free window of at least 21 days between the end of your billing cycle and your actual due date.
So if you use that 21-day window and pay your full statement balance by the due date, your interest rate effectively becomes zero.
Exactly. The 24% APR, the daily compounding, it all just becomes entirely irrelevant.
Which is how millions of people use credit cards for decades to earn cash back and travel points without ever paying a single dime in interest to the banks.
It's a complete shield against that daily bite. But, and this is but the structural rules around keeping that shield active are incredibly strict. Misunderstanding them is exactly how people accidentally trigger that compounding cycle.
Well, I want to push back on those rules for a second because this specific scenario trips up so many people.
Okay, lay it on me.
Imagine, I spent $500 last month on groceries and gas. The bill comes, and I pay $495 of it. I leave just $5 tiny unpaid on last month's statement. Do I still get the grace period for my new purchases next month since I essentially paid off the whole bill?
You absolutely do not.
Wait, really? Not at all.
Not at all. The grace period operates on an all-or-nothing binary. If you carry any balance, even one single dollar from the previous month into the next cycle, the grace period evaporates entirely.
So the bank just categorizes you as a revolving borrower at that point.
Correct. The second you leave a balance, your risk profile in their system shifts. So the very moment you swipe your card for those new groceries the following month, there is no free window.
The interest clock just starts immediately.
It starts ticking the exact second the transaction processes. And getting your grace period back isn't an instant fix either. You typically have to pay your statement balance in full for 2 consecutive billing cycles before the issuer reinstates that 21-day interest-free window.
Wow, that is a ruthless system.
Yeah.
And just when you think you finally grasp how the daily periodic rate works and how to manage the grace period, you look at the fine print of the card agreement and discover a whole other layer of complexity.
Oh, the family of APR.
Yeah, you don't just have one APR. Banks segment their risk into different buckets, meaning your typical agreement has multiple different rates mapped out.
Right. Most people assume their stated rates say that 23.75% applies to everything they do with a piece of plastic, and that baseline rate is your purchase APR.
Which covers normal stuff like grocery stores, gas stations, online shopping.
Exactly. But the fine print actually outlines up to 5 or 6 other distinct rates, and some of them are specifically structured as traps.
Here's what that actually looks like on your statement, particularly when we talk about the cash advance APR. Say you use your credit card at an ATM to pull out physical cash.
Right.
The banking rules for this transaction are entirely divorced from your normal purchases.
Mm.
First of all, the grace period does not exist for cash advances. Right. Even if your account is in perfect standing and you always pay in full, the exact second that ATM dispenses those bills, the daily compounding clock begins.
Because the risk assessment for a bank changes drastically when physical cash is involved. A normal merchant transaction is highly trackable, but cash is untraceable, unrecoverable, and statistically, it correlates with a consumer experiencing financial distress.
That makes sense.
Because of that elevated risk, banks charge a massive premium. The average cash advance APR is 24.48%, but a lot of them aggressively jump to 29% or higher.
But wait, isn't that elevated APR enough to offset their risk? Why do they also tack on immediate upfront fees?
Oh, that upfront fee is all about immediate revenue generation and covering network costs. Just for the privilege of accessing your own credit line as cash, the issuer applies a cash advance fee, usually 3 to 5% of the withdrawal amount, the very moment the transaction clears.
Let's run the real dollars on that. Say you find yourself in an emergency, maybe a tow truck that only takes cash, and you withdraw $500 from an ATM using your credit card. Instantly, you're slapped with a $25 fee. That's the 5%. And simultaneously, a 29% daily interest drip begins on that $525 total.
Yep.
You are paying a premium just to access the money and an exorbitant penalty every single day you hold it. It's an incredibly expensive way to borrow money.
It really is one of the most expensive ways to borrow in the modern financial system. The data strongly suggests avoiding credit card cash advances under almost any circumstance.
Yeah, stay away from those. But what about the other specialized APRs in the fine print, like the promotional and balance transfer rates?
Right. The heavily marketed 0% offers filling up our mailboxes.
We see these constantly. 0% interest for 15 months.
Uh-huh.
On the surface, moving a balance from a 24% card to a 0% card seems mathematically obvious.
It can be a very powerful tool, but it requires navigating the deferred interest mechanism, which is super common with retail or store-branded credit cards.
The deferred interest structure basically acts like a financial rubber band. When you buy, say, a $2,000 appliance and they offer you 0% for 12 months, you're stretching that rubber band.
Right.
The computer system flags your purchase and actually tracks the interest you would be paying in a separate ledger. And if you stretch that band for 12 months and you fail to cut it by paying the balance down to absolute zero before the promo expires, the band snaps back.
And that snapback is severe. If you leave even $10 unpaid when the clock strikes midnight on month 12, they don't just charge you interest on the $10 going forward. No, they reach back in time. They retroactively apply the standard purchase APR, which for store cards often hovers between 25 and 30%, to the entire original $2,000 purchase amount, calculated from day one.
The psychology behind this is fascinating but also super predatory. The retailers structure these deals knowing full well that human behavior is fallible. They're banking on the probability that some people will lose track of the calendar or just make minimum payments.
Exactly, which allows the bank to harvest a whole year's worth of backdated interest in a single day.
Which leads directly into the most punitive rate buried in the terms and conditions, the penalty APR.
Oh, yeah.
Now, a penalty rate feels counterintuitive to me. If someone is struggling to make payments on a 15% interest rate, why would a bank's solution be to raise their rate to nearly 30%? Isn't that just guaranteeing they'll default?
You would think so. But it all comes back to automated risk assessment algorithms. If you violate your card agreement, usually by missing a payment by 60 days or having a payment bounce, the algorithm flags you as a high-risk borrower.
Right.
So to insulate themselves against the statistical likelihood that you might never pay them back, they trigger the penalty APR. Your rate instantly skyrockets to an average of around 27%, often pushing the legal limit of 30%.
And the most aggressive part is that it doesn't just apply to things you buy tomorrow. They apply that massive 30% rate to your existing balance as well. So a single 60-day mistake means the $5,000 balance you are slowly paying down at 15% is suddenly compounding at 30%.
It's brutal. Now, consumer protection laws do require the issuer to review your account after 6 months of consecutive on-time payments to potentially remove the penalty rate, but some issuers will just maintain that punishing rate indefinitely until you explicitly call and demand a review.
Good to know. Okay, there is one final APR distinction we need to clarify before we discuss how to beat this system. Variable versus fixed APRs.
Right, virtually all modern credit cards are variable.
But people didn't sign up for their rates to just randomly fluctuate? Who controls that? Because the mechanism actually traces all the way up to the Federal Reserve.
It does. The variable APR formula has two components, the prime rate plus a margin decided by the bank. And that prime rate moves in direct lockstep with the benchmark rate set by the Federal Reserve. So when the Fed raises rates to combat macroeconomic inflation, your credit card APR automatically increases.
The issuer doesn't have to mail you a notice or ask for permission. When the prime rate shifts, your variable rate shifts automatically in the background.
Exactly. And because the Fed paused their rate cuts in early 2026, holding the benchmark steady through the spring, credit card issuers are keeping their rates locked at these historical highs. It's happening entirely without notice.
So if the Fed sets the baseline for the country, who decides whether I get a manageable 15% rate or get stuck with a crushing 29% rate for the exact same piece of plastic?
That would be your credit score. That 3-digit number is the singular metric banks use to dictate your margin.
And this is where it gets expensive.
Oh, absolutely.
The real dollar difference between a good credit score and a fair credit score is thousands of dollars over a lifetime. Let's look at two people who both carry a $5,000 balance for 1 year.
Okay, let's say person A has an excellent credit score of 800. The bank's algorithm views them as low risk, so they receive a 15% APR. Their interest cost for the year is roughly $750.
Right. Now look at person B. They have a fair credit score of 620. They apply for the exact same credit card, but the bank's default models view them as a higher risk. So they are assigned a 28% APR.
Right.
The interest on their $5,000 balance for the year is roughly $1,400.
That is a $650 difference.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Person B is paying a $650 penalty directly to the bank's profit margin every single year, simply for having a lower three-digit number attached to their profile.
It's an expensive penalty, but understanding this mathematical reality is critical because there is a structural workaround in the financial system that is vastly underutilized.
The credit union hack.
Yes, credit union credit cards.
The data on credit unions is incredibly compelling. While massive national banks are averaging 23 to 24% APRs right now in 2026, credit union credit cards are sitting at averages around 11 to 12%.
Yeah, that's a massive discrepancy, and it comes down to corporate structure. Credit unions are not-for-profit cooperatives. They're owned by their members, not Wall Street shareholders. Because they don't have a mandate to maximize quarterly profit margins, their rates consistently sit 5 to 8 percentage points cheaper than standard commercial bank cards.
That's huge. All right, so knowing how the daily compounding machine operates, how the grace period works, and how your credit score dictates your margin is only half the battle.
Right, now we need to talk about how to short-circuit the machine based on this data.
Exactly. Strategy number 1 is leveraging the system's own rules against it. Set up auto pay for your full statement balance.
Not the minimum payment, the statement balance.
Crucial difference.
Right. By automating the full statement balance every month, you build a permanent safety net that keeps your 21-day grace period flawlessly intact. You use the bank's money for a month, earn the rewards, and pay absolutely $0 in interest.
Perfect. The strategy number 2. If you are anticipating a major expense like a medical procedure or a home repair, and you know you have to carry debt, do not put it on a 24% variable card. Be strategic. Use a 0% intro APR card.
But remember, you have to beat the deferred interest rubber band. The moment you activate a 15-month Supercent card, take out your phone and set a calendar reminder for 14 months out. Pay the balance to absolute zero before the promotional window closes and that retroactive interest kicks in. Do not rely on minimum payments.
Good advice. Strategy number 3 is for anyone currently carrying high APR debt. Run the math on a balance transfer.
Yes.
Even factoring in the upfront fee, the numbers usually lean heavily in the consumer's favor. Let's run that exact math. Say you have a $5,000 balance trapped at a 24% APR.
Okay.
That daily drip is costing you $1,200 a year in pure interest. You find a 0% balance transfer offer with a 3% transfer fee. You pay $150 upfront to move the debt.
Right.
But by doing so, you eliminate the $1,200 interest burden for the year. You're netting $1,050 in actual savings the first year. You're basically paying yourself $1,000 to do 20 minutes of paperwork.
Exactly. And strategy 4 is broadening your financial horizons. Look beyond the massive multinational banks and research local credit unions.
Yeah, most people don't realize they're probably eligible.
Right. Membership requirements have evolved significantly. Many are open to anyone who lives, works, or worships in a specific geographic area. Securing an 11% rate instead of a 24% rate is a fundamental game changer for long-term debt management.
Okay, I want to challenge one final piece of conventional wisdom. Let's say a listener can't qualify for a new balance transfer card right now, and they aren't ready to switch to a credit union.
Okay.
Can a consumer actually just pick up the phone, call a multi-billion-dollar banking institution, and ask them to voluntarily charge less money? I mean, does a massive bank actually care about retaining one individual's account?
They do. They care deeply because the customer acquisition cost for a major bank is incredibly high. It is far more cost-effective for them to retain an existing customer who pays reliably than to spend marketing dollars acquiring a new one.
So calling actually works.
It works far more frequently than people realize. The optimal time to negotiate is after you have established 6 to 12 months of on-time payments, or immediately after your credit score improves.
Having a specific script removes the anxiety from that kind of phone call. What exactly should you say when the retention rep answers the line?
The approach should be polite, direct, and leverage market competition. You just say, "Hi, I have been a loyal customer, and I have a strong payment history with you. I have recently received offers from competing card issuers providing lower interest rates. I would like to stay with you. Can you lower my current APR?"
It's a really straightforward negotiation. I pay on time, your competitors want my business, match their rate. But what if that first representative is just reading from a screen and says, "Sorry, your account is not eligible for a reduction at this time"? What's the next move?
You do not argue with them. You politely thank them, hang up and call back an hour later.
Really? Just call back.
Yes, because different representatives possess different levels of override authority, and they have varying daily retention quotas to meet. So if the next rep lowers your rate by even 2 or 3 percentage points, that reduction immediately decreases your daily compounding formula. That is real money staying in your checking account instead of funding the bank's margin.
The mechanics of credit card interest are dense by design, but once you see the daily periodic rate for what it is, you totally change how you interact with your debt.
Absolutely.
We've translated the daily compounding math, mapped out the 6 different APR variations, and giving you the exact scripts and strategies to fight back against the daily drip. But before we close this discussion, I want to leave you with a tangible assignment.
Oh, I love a good assignment.
Tonight, pull up your credit card statement or log into your banking app. Locate your current APR and divide it by 365 to reveal your daily periodic rate.
Right.
Then, multiply that tiny percentage by your current balance. Look closely at that resulting dollar amount. That is your daily drip.
Now ask yourself, what is that daily drip funding for the credit card company that it should be funding for your own life instead? That's it for today. If you know someone who's been confused about credit card interest, send them this episode. This is Alpha English Podcast. See you next time.